Welcome back to another episode of Thinking That Matters. I'm Elizabeth Mahusay, your podcast host, and I am so looking forward to you hearing from my guest today, Erica Vedane. Erica, thanks for saying yes, and share with the audience a little bit about who you are, your background, what you're doing now, and we'll launch in.
Yeah, so my name's Erica. I live in McKinney. I work here in McKinney. I have a husband. His name is Pierce. We're members of Church 1132. I work in the insurance industry, so I've been in the industry for 7 years. I'm at Mahusay Bynum Insurance. We're in the historic downtown area of McKinney. And prior to that, I was a bartender for several years. So I went from service industry to the insurance, and I also am a small business owner. So I own a company also out of McKinney called Celebrate and Decorate, and it's a party services company where we focus on rentals for parties and celebrations.
So it sounds like you have a full schedule.
Yes, I keep myself busy.
I was like, that is a lot. People say that to me regularly, and I love the energy that you bring to it as well. Okay, that's very different, right? Like you were in bartending, then you went into insurance, and then you now have did you call it a party? How did you describe your Celebrate and Decorate?
It's a party services company with a focus on party rentals.
Okay, got it. Okay, so that's all very different.
Yes.
So tell me about, what is the thread? What are you passionate about? And because I have to imagine there is a thread of connection between those things.
Oh, absolutely. So I'm most passionate about serving others. So whether I'm serving in my church, serving in my community, serving families and businesses save on their insurance costs or get more educated about their insurance, from also serving others celebrate their biggest milestones and spreading joy in the community.
That's so cool because you do get to do those, all in those spaces, in each one of those spaces. Now, but I will say, going from bartending to insurance, right? That was really the first move, and then you're now in the party services space. What caused that shift? How did you shift from bartending, or even maybe give us a quick background on how you even got into bartending?
Yeah. So as a child, I started working at a very young age. Making minimum wage in the service industry, and I really fell in love with it, mostly from the serving others part. I loved having my regulars and just, checking in. You're like part of the family almost. So I love that part about serving and being a host in the restaurant, as well as my mom was always like the biggest party planner. She was an interior designer, very creative in our family. We all did art and music and dance, all kinds of things like that. So really what the shift happened, I almost kind of fell into it, but I think, the Lord prepares our steps. Everything happens for a reason. So I actually was in the restaurant and my mom was battling colon cancer. And so I got the call that she was coming home and they were ending the treatment. So I actually left my job at the restaurant to spend that time with my mom. So I got to spend a few months with her. In her last months, we made a great time about it. And following that is when I decided, hey, I want to do something to make my mom proud. I need to get something either more professional. I need to go back to school, something along those lines. I was 22 at the time, so I was still really young.
Wow, you were young when your mom died.
Yeah. I still had my whole life ahead of me, but I wanted to, jump out of my comfort zone. And what's the worst that could happen? I could always go back to the restaurant industry. So, actually, after she passed, I took about a month handling funeral services and the things. And I got hired on at a insurance agency and started to learn the business. And before I knew it, I was in the top of my district. Then I went independent, and it's just been a great ride. I love it. My skills really transitioned well from bartending over to insurance as far as building the rapport and keeping the relationships. And I like to do events as well for insurance, from networking events to supporting real estate agents and the like. So it kind of all blends together. You wouldn't think it would, but it really does.
No, that's true. And so for you, first of all, I'm grateful to hear that you were able to leave the restaurant to be with your mom. And I know that she wasn't the only person that you went through that experience of death and grief and how that impacted you. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So again, I was, 22 years old. Mom came home with hospice care. At the same time, actually, my grandmother back in Alabama, my dad's mom, she also went on to hospice. So we lost them 14 days apart in February of 2018. And then unfortunately the next year I lost my brother in the summer of 2019. He was my only sibling, 29 years old. His name was Jake.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's tough. So when you reflect back, because that's been a few years now, for most people, I don't want to say all, but I'll say for most people, death is so difficult. It can create a lot of challenge in one's thinking.
Absolutely.
How did you work through that? Because those are three very important people in your life in such a short time frame. So from a thinking standpoint, how did you navigate that?
Yeah. So actually, if we back up a little bit from when my mom came home on hospice, so about a year prior to that, I got involved with a church in Allen called Church 1132, and it's a very different worship style than what I grew up. I grew up in the Methodist Church.
Okay.
Love the Methodist Church, but this is a different style. It's a non-denominational. And I really feel like the Lord led me there about a year before I was about to walk through the hardest year of my life to really get me full in my faith. I grew up in church, but I don't know, something different happened when I joined that church. So my worship style kind of changed. I figured out how to more access the Holy Spirit tangibly, I guess you could say, and worship became a huge thing to me. I really knew my Bible. I really knew how to pray. I knew how to serve people in the Methodist Church, but the worship style that I learned here was pivotal for me getting through that grief. And then mindset in general, I feel like, especially after my mom passed, grief can be a make or break it moment. I feel like a lot of people either get stuck or they propel from that into some really great things.
It's interesting that you say grief can be a make or break, because I think I would wholeheartedly agree with that. What helped? So you said that Church 1132, I almost said it backwards.
Yeah.
So Church 1132, and how you were transformed from a worship standpoint. It was a great add-on to the foundation that you had. What else helped you for the grief to propel you versus, take you down?
Absolutely. So I do believe in counseling. I think counselors are amazing. And with some really great professionals, I was able to really work on changing the way that I think. From a mindfulness perspective, being grateful. I'm really big on you can always find a silver lining in anything. And if you can't see it at that point, just trust God that you'll see it somewhere down the line. So that's really, really my thought changing, my worship, and just relying on the Lord. That's what got me through that for sure.
I think it's so important when you talk about finding the silver lining. And I'm also thankful for you saying that sometimes we can't see it in the moment because we need more time. Oftentimes we see it when we look back and we reflect on what we went through or the circumstances to find that silver lining. I feel like I can't pass this by without asking. So I'm sure there have been many times you've reflected back on that very difficult year of your life. What would you say is the silver lining of that very difficult year of your life?
Yeah, so I will say me and my father, our relationship really got stronger through that. And my brother as well, in that few months that we still had him, we really clung together. And my dad and I's relationship has been amazing since then. So I feel like that was one silver lining of it. Another one was I was a pretty difficult teenager to deal with. Bless my parents. I was interesting to say the least. Mm-hmm. And so in those couple months that I got to spend with my mom at home, she said something to me one day, and she actually said, "Hey, Erica, you taking care of me these last few months and me watching you become a woman of God has made up for anything that you could have done in your teenage years." And that really brought me peace, especially being in the restaurant industry for a while. I missed a lot of holidays. You're working on Christmas, you're working on Easter, and I did make time to see my family, but I do regret some of that looking back, that I didn't have that time with my mom. So to have her say that to me in her final moments really meant the world to me.
Whew, you make me cry. So true. But that's the power of silver lining, right? It's the power of how it can really transform the way that we, in this case, experience the death of someone who really means a lot, a lot to us. Yeah. So you go into insurance, you learn about it, and I happen to know, because you spoke at my Powerful Women Growth Group, that where you started to learn the industry is not where you stayed.
No.
So I would love for you to share how you went from, because you were very successful in the agency where you were, rising in the ranks to being top in the district. And you went to a different location. You went to more of an independent. And so for the sake of people who are listening that maybe they don't know a lot about insurance, give us the quick primer, short form on the difference between where you started and where you are now in the insurance world.
Absolutely. So in insurance, there's two types of insurance agencies. You have what's called a captive insurance agency, and then you have what's called an independent. So if you're a captive, you work for an insurance company and you sell one type of product. Think about your State Farm, your USAA, your Farmers Insurance. Then you have your independents, where they actually don't work for an insurance company. They work for their clients. They have independent appointments to write insurance policies with other carriers, but they don't work for, per se, an actual insurance company. So I started in one of those captive type of agencies, which was great for me at the time because I was so young. I got to learn under one product and didn't have to jump into the differences of 30 different carriers changing every day.
That can be a little overwhelming.
Yes, absolutely. So I got my base down there. I really feel like I learned what I needed to learn about insurance as a whole. And then I got interested in going independent. So I actually went out and interviewed different agency owners that I was impressed with from what I could see online, reviews, and their longevity here in the market. So I went out to lunch with a few different agency owners, and once I met Al Masheri, I knew right off the bat at that one lunch that this was the place I was going to go to grow.
That's so cool that you took it from the standpoint of interviewing people that impressed you. And okay, so I'm curious, you met Al Masheri and you're like, this is where I want to be. So I have to imagine that my audience is wondering, what exactly, like, was it characteristics? Like, list that out for us. Did you go into those conversations looking for something specific or some specific things? And then, so I'd love for you to answer that. And then, as well as what was exhibited in that particular lunch that had you hang your license there?
Yeah. So, really, I loved the culture that they were talking about. He did bring along a couple of his other staff members, so I got to meet some people as well at the lunch. There was a few things that we said that just clicked. It just clicked. I love too that he's not just has experience being an agency owner. His prior background was working for Nationwide in the claims department. So he worked his way up to actually becoming the national director of claims for Nationwide. And then he went up from there to be the national litigations director for them.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So, knowing that he has a little bit of a different background was intriguing to me, as well as he carefully picks the carriers that he works with because claims are important to him. So I know some companies kind of just get everybody that they can to do insurance with. He really wants to vet these companies, make sure their financials are in line and their claims rating is good before we trust putting our customers there.
Oh man, that makes a lot of sense. I'm just thinking about what the background piece and how important that is, because the last thing you want is to have a claim and you can't get payment for it.
Exactly. That's what insurance is for, right?
It is so true. And it's very frustrating when that doesn't happen. So I can see where that would be incredibly valuable. So from a culture standpoint, because there's a lot more talk about office culture now, even in the leaders that I coach, often that comes up. What is the culture that you're creating or that you desire to have within your office? When you think about, because you went through this transformation of how you think, right, through grief, switched careers, switched from captive to independent, how would you say the culture where you are now supports your thinking?
Okay, so our team culture, like we are a family. We do like to have fun. We have a lot of fun competition. We actually have a basketball hoop. People bring their dogs to work. I mean, it's a great atmosphere. So that's a little bit about our culture. But also, I mean, the owner, he really builds his agency on a plan that is going to make people incentivized to grow. And I've seen the growth in our team, not just in myself personally and professionally, but everybody else that walks through those doors. So that's a huge part of our culture. We have fun. We're like family.
So we're fun, I hear, is an important part. And then the incentivized to grow, because didn't you tell me that like you've won bags and you've won like all sorts of, so how does he incentivize you all?
Oh yeah. So everybody's incentivized differently. So for different competitions we do, sometimes there will be really fun things that you can win, like Golden Goose shoes, Gucci bags, NFL jerseys, all kinds of fun things. But also sometimes we're incentivized by, hey, you win a free day off. You get an extra PTO day. Some people are motivated differently.
Yes, they are.
Yes. So I love that. I also love that.
So, but I think there's an important part to what you just said, which is different people are motivated differently. And I would always connect that back to because they think differently about value, right? What the value that someone places, for example, on a day off might be different than the value someone places on being able to say they have a Gucci bag.
Exactly.
Or a cool pair of shoes for that matter. So what I hear is that within that culture, he's finding ways to customize, in a sense, the motivational aspects for the team. And I think that's really cool that you have that as an ability. Okay, so you were top in the district in the captive. How have you done in the independent?
Okay, so I wish I transitioned a little sooner. I will say my first 6 months at the Mahusay Bynum agency, I had already doubled what I had made in a calendar year at my previous agency. Having more options is just great. It's awesome. It's hard to lose when you have all the different options to quote for somebody. So that's great. As well as I was able to grow a little bit more in the commercial space. I know, in different corporations, they have different job roles that are set. Being at an independent, you can run your business however you want. You can let people move up and down and try commercial and try personal lines and do whatever they really want to do. If they find a niche that they want to be in, he'll let you go do that and support you and give you the resources that you need.
Okay, so did you say that you doubled your income in the first 6 months of moving over?
Yes.
This is why I love entrepreneurism and, the ability to sell. And I mean, that is awesome. What were you going to say?
Yeah, I was going to say that's actually what enabled me to be able to open my own small business just last year.
Okay, so tell us about that, because obviously you made the decision to open your small business. What were you thinking? Like, what had you thinking? I want to add one more thing to my plate.
Well, okay, so after COVID, I'm sure we all kind of experienced this in different here in North Texas, but also around the nation, I'm sure around the world. There was a very tense environment, I guess you could say. I'm sure we all felt that. A lot of lack of joy. I mean, we were all isolated for a year. So again, with my mom being into decorating, I was in art, and we loved hosting parties. Like my mom was the party host of the neighborhood. So with all of that in mind, and when being younger, I had some entrepreneurial things that I did as a teenager, and so I was doing great in insurance. I had all this extra income laying around. Well, why not? Why not try something out that I enjoy doing? I actually almost wanted to be an event planner, but I figured that would take up a little too much time. Yeah. So I said, hey, how can I be involved and spread the joy, but still be able to do all the other responsibilities that I have? And so that's why I thought party rentals would be a great way.
All right. Now, party rentals can mean a lot of things, right? So really narrow that down for us. Specifically, in what way, like what type of party rentals are you providing?
Yeah. So I opened last year, so I do have really big plans and aspirations for what this is going to look like here in a couple years down the road. But today, what I started with is I rent out a champagne cart. So again, back to my bartending. I love to host, and who doesn't like mimosas? So we do mimosa bar carts. We do champagne carts for like anniversary parties and grand openings for businesses. I also do the yard card sign rentals, okay. But I'm totally independent on that. So I don't have any like jurisdictions or regions that I have to stay out of. I can kind of operate it however I want. I can buy my yard signs from whichever vendors that I like. So I do those two items right now. I also do some charcuterie cup orders. But again, I have some big aspirations to get to a point where I have all the tables, all the chairs, the backdrops, everything. And you could call me and I could start from the front yard and decorate all the way back.
Wow, that's super cool. And I've seen pictures of your champagne cart and also the charcuterie cups, making sure I'm saying that properly. And so what a great way to, also to your point of just the fun, like bringing some fun and the celebration back into people's lives is, there's so much value to that. Now, if someone wanted to, whether it was to rent the champagne cart or to get a yard sign that says happy birthday or happy anniversary, where would they go to find that information?
Absolutely. So we are on Facebook. We have an Instagram, but the best place to go to do a booking is actually on our website. So that's going to be www.celebrate-decorate.com.
That's awesome. And okay, so I want to know on the yard signs, because a lot of from a standpoint of those that are within a franchise, a lot of times it's only for 24 hours. Are you limited to that? Are people able to have longer period of time for a sign?
Yeah. So, I mean, again, with being my own business, I can kind of build it how I want to. So typically most people do rent for the day. It's like a birthday or what have you. But we do have an option to add additional days at just $30.
Okay, that's cool. So it can stay out for longer.
Yes.
If it makes sense, you know, to stay out for longer, depending on that. Now, you had mentioned you've had this progression from being entrepreneurial as a child to going into ultimately bartending, now into insurance and also your own business. I have to imagine that in your own personal development, you have faced either limiting beliefs that have held you back or made it more difficult, or maybe even limiting beliefs that others have tried to place on you. I want you to speak to that. Maybe give an example and how you overcame that.
Yeah, so I definitely had some limiting beliefs. I was just young. I feel like, especially for women too, when you come into an industry and you're young, people look at you a little different. So I did have some overcoming to do on that one. Also, I did not go to college. I don't have a college degree. And while there's lots of great things that you can do without a college degree, sometimes that does kind of weigh on you. People can make you feel down about yourself because you didn't choose to do that route. So those were a couple limiting beliefs that I had coming into this transition. But at the end of the day, I really just put my trust in the Lord and said, you know what, I'm going to glorify you, God, in everything that I do. I know you're going to help me out. The Bible is full of tons of people that had no experience, really shouldn't have been, no college degree, and God used them in mighty ways. So why couldn't he use me?
Oh, that's so, thinking about that, is there a particular scripture that has really meant something to you? Let's start first with you can choose either one, young or no college degree, that's really helped you to stay focused and to break through that limiting belief barrier?
Yeah, there's a few. So one that comes right off the top of my mind is, take every thought captive.
Yes.
So that can be really hard. Negative thinking, it happens to everyone. About 75% of the average person's thoughts a day are negative. So when I feel myself hearing something negative going on in my mind, I will physically say out loud, nope, we're not thinking that. We're going to redirect. We're going to say something different in our mind. I am doing a lot of things. I'm busy enough. I don't have any energy for some
negative thought.
Stuff.
That's right. That's going to take you off course.
Exactly. So that's a big one for me. Also, another one in Romans where it talks about being transformed by the renewing of our mind.
Yes.
I went
Romans
through a
12.
huge renewal process. A lot of it was growing up too, but that's a big scripture as well for the mentality.
Yes, both of those are so good and really, really speak to how important thinking is as it relates to our ability to not allow limiting beliefs to hold us back from being all that we were created to be, in terms of how we show up in the world and how we engage and impact the world as well. And so I'm so appreciating that. So you speak of scripture and Bible. Well, Bible and scripture are the same thing, but how church has helped and your faith has led the way. If you had to, in a sense, give summary of how your faith has helped you personally, professionally, like how would you describe that?
Yeah, well, I know I've heard a quote one time that's, I don't know how you could go to Walmart without the Holy Spirit. So it's like, I don't know how you live life or go through grief or job change. I mean, any of that. I have no idea how people do that on their own. Just the friend that Jesus is to you in that moment, but also your church community. Like, people need community. They need people to stand with them, especially people that are going to believe the best in you. The world can be very cynical. If you have some people around you that are really rooting for you and genuinely care about you, that can be pivotal in your make or break moment. I remember when my brother was in the hospital in ICU, we had pastors from our church 1132, pastors from our old Methodist church coming in. Like, the hospital staff were like, oh my gosh, are y'all a pastor's family? Because there's so many church people coming in here. And they were all around his bedside. And I don't know how people walk through that kind of stuff without that type of support.
It is hard to imagine. And also, I will say that it is so comforting to think about. Well, first of all, when you were talking about friend in Jesus, it makes me think of the song, What a Friend We Have in Jesus, which is an oldie as far as hymns are concerned. And then also that the community that is provided within the church environment and really being surrounded by like-minded people. And I like how you also said that are going to believe the best about you. Yeah. Because I think when people believe the best about you, there is a way that they call you upward, right?
Yes.
Call you to be more than even sometimes we believe ourselves are capable of being, because they understand that it's not about Erica, it's about God in Erica, and how he works in and through you where that's concerned. I love that so much. So tell the viewing audience, like, how can they learn about Mahusay Bynum Insurance? How can they find about, I know you gave the website for Celebrate Decorate, but give them the information on how they can find out about you as an insurance agent.
Yeah, so for Mahusay Bynum Insurance, honestly, if you go onto Google and you type in Insurance Agency McKinney, we're the first one to pop up. We've got over 600 Google reviews online, but you can go direct to our website. It's www.minsuranceagent.com. You can actually quote yourself on there, and one of our staff will reach out with a customized quote for you.
That's probably smart to say M Insurance versus Mahusay Insurance.
Oh, yeah. People have enough problems saying that as it is. It's the running joke in McKinney that no one can say the name.
Okay, so for the audience, Erica and I know each other because we network together, every week, and it really is the running joke in terms of how it's said in networking. So I'm just cracking up over the fact that it's M Insurance.
Yep. I had to shorten that.
That is very smart. This is why our photography business is not Mahusay, in the name, because
Exactly.
people would be like, what? Fred is very easy. Fred shots, very easy. I absolutely love that. Well, my passion is thinking that matters. And when I heard you speak at Powerful Women Growth Group, I absolutely loved how you kept bringing in thinking, whether it was how your thinking was transformed because you chose to go to counseling and to remain in counseling to receive that help, how your thinking was impacted through a really difficult year of 3 deaths in your life, and how that really transformed you. There's so many different thematic aspects of the importance of your thinking and your story, and you're in so many ways still in the very beginning stages of your story, right? So why would you say it's important to cultivate thinking that matters?
So your thinking is everything. So, really, if you think about it, what you think about, you're eventually going to say, and what you say, you're eventually going to do. And we are a combination of the actions that we always take. So your thinking starts that whole chain of events. And so if your thinking is not in the right direction, you're probably not going to go in the right direction either. So it really all starts back to that. So much of our emotions and how we feel, even like physical pain in the body. Grief, that'll mess your back up.
It will.
And so, refreshing, renewing your mind, all of that, it really all links together in how the entirety of your life plays out.
So good. See, that's an example of where you hit the little back 30 seconds and you listen to it again, because thinking is everything. I absolutely love that, because at the end of the day, regardless of what life brings your way, when you choose to renew your mind, when you choose to cultivate thinking that matters, you can live a life that matters. You can build a career that matters. You can impact people for good in so many ways that actually matter. Thanks so much for being on the show, Erica.
Thank you for having me.